Hello again, gamers. Welcome back to the Board Game Captain. I'm the Board Game Captain.
I'm Lynn.
And today we are going to be doing a preview and tutorial video for the upcoming game Gloom of Thrones. Now this game is on Kickstarter. We're going to put a link to the Kickstarter down below. And this is this pre-production copy here was sent to us to do some content with by Atlas Games. So first off, I want to thank Atlas Games for sending us some stuff to play. And so now, if you're not familiar with our preview and tutorial videos, we do these a little differently. First off, we're not going to be showing any components, just holding up to the camera, because these are all pre-production components. This is not what it's going to look like when it's finally made. So we're just going to go into the tutorial, and then we're going to come back, and we're also not going to review it, because we never review things till we have the final production components. We're just going to talk about who we would recommend this game to and why, who we think should back the Kickstarter or purchase the game. So let's head over to the table, and we're going to run you through a few turns and tell you how this game plays. Okay, so here we can see a game of Gloom of Thrones set up for 2 players. Now, I usually like this game better at 3 or more personally, but it can play at 2, and it is easier to show with 2, so we're going to do it as a 2-player game. So the first thing you got to do is each of you chooses your great house. So I have chosen the Bannisters, so I have Seriously Bannister here, and then I also have Tipsian Bannister here. Then I have Shamey Bannister there, Toffee Bratsforians there, and Trywin Bannister there. And then now, who do you have?
I don't remember the name because it's like all random.
Oh yeah, that's the one that's the bunch of people from all different houses.
Yeah.
It's like a hodgepodge.
Littlefinger, Berry of Tart, Sulkwell Tubby, Dave Onion, and Stink.
Then after choosing your house, you shuffle up the deck, deal 5 cards to each of the players as their starting hand, place the porcelain throne in the center of the table, and you're ready to go. So on your turn, you get to do 2 actions. Most of your actions will be playing of cards. And the first action is the only time when you can actually kill someone, though you cannot play an untimely death card to kill someone unless they are in the negative points. You can play cards either on your own or your opponent's family members. And then without much further ado, let's just get into it here. Okay, so for my first action, I'm going to play on Trywin Bannister. He was reunited with a relative, which is a positive thing. And remember, you don't want positive things to happen. But it does give me, in addition to plus 20 points, which is bad because you want to have the lowest score possible, it does give me a continuing effect that my draw limit is increased by 1 card. So there is a reason I'm putting it on him. Plus, he can't be killed unless he's in negative points anyway. So my opponent won't be able to kill him right now unless my opponent lowers his point cost, but would have to use one of the cards to do so. So then as my second action, I'm going to play Toffee Bratsforians. He was taken to a tower. So what happened was, Trywin Bannister was reunited with his long-lost sister, and while she was distracting him, Toffee was abducted by a rival family and was locked away in a tower, and that's worth negative 25 points, and it has a continuing effect that I currently cannot play untimely death cards. So I get to draw back up to my 5-card hand, and now it is my opponent's turn.
Okay, I'm going to play an event where it says every player but you must discard all of the cup cards in their hands. So the little cup symbol.
I do not have any of those.
Okay, well, it was worth a shot.
Worth a shot.
My second one is I'm going to play another event.
Oh, I forgot I get to draw an extra card because of Trywin. My bad.
I get to look at the top 5 cards from the draw pile, add 3 of them to my hand, and discard the rest.
Well, that's interesting.
Okay. And then I don't draw because I have
Because you have the right number of cards.
I have a bunch of cards.
Okay. So I'm going to play, for my first action, I'm going to play Flinched from a Fair Fight. So Toffee Bratsforian was trying to escape from that tower he was locked in, and he had to get in a fight with one of the guards, and he flinched and was horribly embarrassed, and everybody laughed at him, and they sent him right back to the tower without his supper. And that gives him another negative 20 points total, as you can see, as you place these clear cards on each other. They may cover up previous symbols, but anything that can show through is currently in effect. So he has a total of negative 20, 30, 45 points. He has a heart symbol and a skull symbol on him. And the player to my right can randomly take one card from my hand. Oh, there we go. And then for my next effect, I'm going to play this card here on let's see, on Tipsy and Bannister. I'm going to play Wielded Wildfire, which is negative 10 points, and Tipsy and Bannister lost a hand while wielding Wildfire, and that's going to give him negative points, and immediately I can play a modifier with a skull icon for free. However, I don't have any of those, so I'm just going to draw back up to my full 6-card hand. Again, still 6 because of the effect I put on Tywin Bannister there, and it will be my opponent's turn.
Okay. I'm going to play Intruded on Incest on Silkwell Tubby.
Oh boy, what did he see?
He saw things that human eyes should not see.
Oh, poor Silkwell.
I would have to discard one card from my hand for each crown icon in play, but there are none in play, so I don't have to discard anything.
Huh, yeah, there hasn't been any crowns to come
I
up yet in
do
this
skip
game.
my draw phase this turn. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this on this guy.
On Tywin?
Yes, you discard all other modifier cards on this character.
Oh, okay, so I lose my ability.
Yes.
Okay, but that actually is fine by me because it makes him now actually a negative score. Okay, so on my turn, for my first action, I'm going to play Didn't Hold the Door on Toffee Bratsforian. Now, Didn't Hold the Door is worth negative 15 points, but we'll be covering up his old negative 10 point score there. So it'll just make it an extra negative 5. So what happened was Toffee Bratsforian, combined with other of the prisoners in the tower, tried to get away, but he didn't hold the door. And because of it, he fell down the stairs and broke his neck, and his head got turned around backwards, just like that guy in The Exorcist. So the effect, though, is also that I have to discard my entire hand. So unfortunately, even though I got to kill him and he's done, he is dead now, and he is dead at negative, let's see, 25, 35, 40, negative 50 points, which is actually really good. I do have to discard my entire hand and draw back up to 5. And that is it for me, because I had to lose my other action since I didn't have a hand with any cards to play.
Okay. What?
Nothing, just a funny name of a card I just drew.
I'm going to play Gorged on Guts, where it says I may play a modifier with the crown icon as a free play.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So that's going to allow me to play Meddled with the Monarchy on Silkwell Tubby.
Who now becomes the king.
And it says the player to your right may randomly select and discard 2 cards from your hand.
These two.
Of course.
The 2 death cards. Yeah, get rid of those.
Well,
so.
that was a free play. So I
Oh,
still have
yeah,
one more.
fair enough.
I'm going to play Received a Raven on Littlefinger. The player to your right may randomly select and keep one card from your hand. I don't have any.
Fair enough. Okay. I'm going to play Was Farked by Their Faults on Tywin Bannister. So Tywin Bannister was murdered by one of his own children because he lusted after their girlfriend. I might be getting a little close to the fiction on that one. But that actually adds up to quite a lot of extra negative points there, so that's really good. And then I'm going to play on... what is his name?
Sulkwell Tubby.
Sulkwell Tubby. Sulkwell Tubby was commanded a creature, and I guess this is amazing. So he gets a big wild boar to command, and that gives him lots of power. This is a good thing because it gives him plus 15 points, and it's going to cover up your negative 20 there. And it says that you randomly get to steal 2 cards from my hand. And then I'm going to draw back up to my full 5-card hand.
Okay. I'm going to play this card on Sulkwell Tubby.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to bleep it if I say the name.
Is it that rude? What does it say?
Oh, hold on. That wasn't...
Is that the wrong card?
Oh, no, it's this one. I am playing that one.
What is that one called?
This is Soiled Themselves Shamefully.
Soiled himself. You want to tell a story? What happened?
Well, the next card will tell it.
And by the way, you do have the Porcelain Throne, which means you're allowed to kill someone right now. Possibly.
Yeah, I'm going to play that one.
Was shot in the shitter. That's okay. I think we can let that one through.
Okay. So that kind of goes it goes thematically. Soiled himself shamefully because he was shot on the shitter. I
don't want him to die with that many negative points, so I'm going to play Not Today, and he was saved at the last minute by one of the King's Guard.
Is that an event card?
Mm-hmm.
I have a reversed event card.
Oh, how dare you! Well, he is dead, but now since he died, and it did not trigger the end of the game, the Porcelain Throne reverts to the middle of the table, and now that was your 2 actions, so you draw back up to your full hand.
Well, it's only 1 card because I had all those extra cards.
So then I'm going to play Shamey Bannister consulted the council, which gives him a lot of extra points, but also lets him take the Porcelain Throne. Now, if the Porcelain Throne had still been on Lynn's character there, he would have stolen the Porcelain Throne from her. But in this case, he just takes it from the center of the table because it does have a crown symbol on the card right there. Now, this gives him a bunch of positive points, and it has a continuing effect that increases my hand size by 1 card. And that will be my first play. And then for my second play, I'm going to, let's see here. I'm going to play Was Confused by Chaos on Seriously Bannister, which gives her negative 10 points. And then I would draw back up. And this is how you play a game of Gloom of Thrones. So if you're familiar with Gloom, you can see that the game is very similar to Gloom. In fact, it's the same game. The only difference is being the Porcelain Throne itself, which is a unique addition to the rules, and the omission of persistent effects that happen even when they're covered up. Other than those, it is the same game as Gloom. If you're not familiar with Gloom, this is a good example of how you play a game of Gloom. You play cards on people, only the numbers and the effects count. You're trying to kill off characters with severely negative scores, because at the end of the game, which the game ends when an entire family of 1 players is eliminated, you count up the score of each player, and the person with the lowest score, though the biggest negative score, wins the game of Gloom or Gloom of Thrones. In the case of Gloom of Thrones, if you manage to have the Porcelain Throne when the game ends, it's worth an additional negative 50 points, which is huge. Which is why it's really good to play cards to steal the Porcelain Throne, because if the game ends while you have it, yay, that's a heck of a lot of negative points. And that's it. So now we're going to head back over and we're going to talk about who we would recommend this game to. Okay, welcome back. So that was how you play a game of Gloom of Thrones. So now, instead of reviewing it, because we don't do full reviews and ratings on games that are not production yet, we're just going to talk about who we would recommend to either purchase or back this if you watch this video while it's still on Kickstarter. So the first thing I think we've talked about is, so Gloom is 15 years old now. This year, I think it turns 15. So Gloom has been out there a long time. If you've played Gloom and you still like Gloom, you still play Gloom, the rules of this game are not all that different from standard Gloom. That I think that the first prerequisite is you have to already like Gloom to want this game. If you haven't tried Gloom, I would definitely recommend trying it. If you haven't tried Gloom and you're a gamer, you probably know someone who owns a copy of Gloom since it's been out for 15 years. Try Gloom. If you like Gloom, that's the first thing, and I would pair that with all the other things we would recommend. What are some other reasons why someone should buy this or back this? What do you think?
If you are a fan of Game of Thrones.
Yes. So there's some great parody of Game of Thrones characters in here. There was one that took me a while to figure out. I don't remember. Was it? Oh,
it was you and the other person we were playing with. You were like, why is that the name? And I was like, it's obvious.
Yeah, there were a few. There were a few that took you got them right away. But there were a few of the jokes.
It was Kathy C. You were like, was it Kathy or Carly? It was like Carly C, and I was like Khaleesi.
Yeah,
like come on, guys.
Right. It took me a minute. I was like, I don't get it. Why is it? Yeah, and you're like, it's supposed to be like Khaleesi. Yeah. So okay. So the first thing is, if you're a fan of Gloom and you like the way Gloom plays, and then you're also a fan of Game of Thrones, yes, you should buy it and back it. The next thing I had to say, and this is something because we played Gloom 15 years ago when it was new. If you are not a fan of the Gloom rule for persistent effects, so here's the thing. This is a big difference between original Gloom and this version, Gloom of Thrones. There are no persistent effects in here. Now, persistent effects were effects that, even if they were covered up, they would still affect your character. They'd still affect the stack. But the thing is, if they're covered up, how do you know that? You don't see them. I always hated those. So I think this is a big improvement not including them anymore. So if you were a fan of Gloom, but did not like the persistent effects, there's no persistent effects in this version. So I would say that would be a reason to buy this or back this for sure. And then what else? What are some other differences?
Well, there's that special card, the Porcelain Throne.
The Porcelain Throne. I think the Porcelain Throne is a minor rule difference. Again, most of the rules here are basically just Gloom. But the Porcelain Throne, minor rule difference though it is, actually, in my opinion, significantly increases the interest for me in playing this game, because it's a lot more interesting. So every time you play a card that has the crown symbol on it, you get to take the Porcelain Throne. And then while you have the Porcelain Throne, it makes that character worth negative 50 points. Which, remember, the lowest points are good. You want the negative points. And you can't kill a character till they're at negative points. So if an opponent takes it, the Porcelain Throne is the only thing making that character at negative 50 points. You can kill that character, at which point, if that character dying doesn't trigger the end of the game, they lose the Porcelain Throne. And even though you killed them when they were negative, they're now worth positive points, which is bad for them. But if you kill a character, your own character, who has the Porcelain Throne, and they're the character that triggers the end of the game, they actually get to keep it. And the other thing is, the Porcelain Throne, while you have the Porcelain Throne, your second of your two actions is allowed to be killing someone, which normally you can't do. So you can have the Porcelain Throne, give someone a bunch of negative points, and then kill them, which normally is something you're not able to really do. You have to set it up a turn ahead of time. So yeah, the Porcelain Throne is very cool and very powerful and very interesting, especially the way it ping-pongs around the table. So if you liked Gloom and think that the Porcelain Throne sounds interesting, I would say back Gloom of Thrones. And then you said if you like Gloom and
Game of Thrones,
and you're a fan of Game of Thrones and like the mixing of the dark humor with Game of Thrones, which actually considering the families are constantly trying to kill each other off, totally goes with the theme of Game of Thrones anyway, then you should back Gloom of Thrones. And if you still like Gloom and you were not a fan of the persistent effects in the original game, you should back Gloom of Thrones. So those are reasons why we think if those apply to you, you should back or purchase a copy of Gloom of Thrones. So there you have it. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns on Gloom of Thrones or this video, feel free to put them in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this preview and tutorial video and you'd like to be sure to give it a like, share it on all forms of social media, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelled with a K on YouTube. And hit that little bell icon on my channel so you get alerts every time I upload a new video. And until next time, game on.